Good afternoon, everybody. Let's talk a little bit about sludge and friction and buy here, pay here business. We're all selling high mileage cars. I'm selling cars around 100,000 miles. People are driving these cars on a daily basis. We're dealing with customers that cannot and will not maintain their cars. I mean, our customers, all they really care about, does the stereo jam? Does the AC blow cold? The cigarette lighter work so they can use their iPhone? The visor light work so they can put on makeup, and will it go where they need it to go? I mean, it's something that the customers are driving their cars and they're not really thinking about it. It's just put gas in it and drive it. Our customers drive a lot in my experience and buy here, pay here. I mean, my average is 24,000 miles in 13 to 15 months because we track those miles through our reinsurance program for the service contract. But I've heard a lot and had a lot of experience with house cars where we have customers that'll buy a car. Everybody in the family lives in the same house. It's the only car that runs. Everybody gets a key and the car never stops. So I've seen cars with 40,000 miles put on them in 6-8 months, burn completely up, and it's back on the lot. You know, and we've offered free oil changes at 2 different operations that I've been involved in, and you can't even get everyone to come and take advantage of those oil changes. So it's a constant problem about maintenance. And then on top of that, of everything else, the technology. We're getting into vehicles 2013s, 2014s, even pushing into 2015s now. And the technology in those vehicles is tremendous when they're brand new and under somebody's factory warranty. But that technology really starts to be an issue as these vehicles get up around 100,000 miles and people aren't maintaining them the way they should. I mean, the technology has changed our shops. I don't know how many of y'all had experience with shops. I've had several of them. But the change in the shop where the technician doesn't have a bunch of wrenches from Craftsman. He's got a laptop sitting on top of his fancy toolbox with LED lights. I have to pay for Wi-Fi in our shop. I have to pay for data links so that our technicians can go on their laptops, download a data link that can help them communicate with a vehicle and do an update on the computer system so the vehicle can operate properly. So the technology has been wonderful for the vehicles to get a lot of power out of smaller motors and get better fuel economy. But at the same time, with the advent of electric steering and the mile-long timing chains and the chain guides and the cam phasers and the drive-by-wire and all of these things that are coming out on these cars, you need a computer technician from Geek Squad more than you need automotive technicians these days. So who am I? I'm Gene Daughtry. I'm in the buy here, pay here business. Been in the business for about 28 years now. I am working on the 5th startup that I have put together, all for other companies. Every one of these startups, buy here, pay here, and all had shops. I write articles for Buy Here, Pay Here report. I contribute to every edition of that. I've been writing articles for several publications, close to 10 years now. I have a website called dealers411.net. You can go on to my website and you can order my ebook, Buy Here, Pay Here 101 Plus. And it has everything in there that I could think of to help someone get into the business or understand their numbers or how to improve their business, and lots of contacts and links and other things that you can use to reach out to other people to find ways to help your business be more profitable. Let's talk a minute about a man named Ted. That sounds like a man named Jed, I know, from the Beverly Hillbillies. But a man named Ted was an older gentleman that came to one of our dealerships years ago, back before the turn of the century, as a matter of fact. And he had a new product he wanted us to test out. He brought an electric motor. It was called a bearing test. It had bearings, a bearing race, and a bearing on a torsion bar. And we tested lots of different products using friction to stop the electric motor while the bearing components were being lubricated by the different products like Mobile One, Slick 50, Lucas, Miracle Mystery Oil, all of these different products even that we could find to test on. We had them sitting around the shop. We used the product that Ted brought to us, his new technology, and we could not stop the electric motor. We were impressed. We started letting Ted introduce that product into all of our vehicles, anything that was internally lubricated. because we knew that it was helping. We could find examples. We used extreme examples and tested to quieten knocks, quieten squealing, but we were growing a new business. Ted got ill, couldn't come anymore, and we sort of lost touch with Ted, and we couldn't figure out where we get any more of the product, so we stopped using it. So let's talk about sludge. We were talking about technological advances back earlier, and that's the big cause of sludge these days, is the technological advances have created this new monster called sludge. What causes it? It's all the different things that these new technological engines have brought to us. Internal water pumps that allow coolant to seep into your engines. The reburning of raw fuel so that your exhaust system would be clean and you wouldn't have any emissions escaping. The buildup of moisture that gets into your engines through condensation. I bet people don't really think much about condensation, but you're constantly heating and cooling and heating and cooling, and inside your engine, inside your transmission, inside your gas tank, you know, your customers don't usually put any gas in their cars. Anywhere there's empty space and there's heating and cooling, and moisture is going to develop through condensation, and so that gets into your oil with the coolant, with the unburned raw fuel, with the carbon that is burned that's getting in there, and all of that mixed with the dirt and the heat and the wear and tear and our customers not taking care of your cars, and that oil hardly has a chance to take care of that engine, and that's all building up as sludge in all the hidden places inside of your motor. And it doesn't take long for that sludge to close up those small ports and channels that you need for your oil to flow effectively in your engine. And you know, there's examples of engines that you've ran across these in the past. You probably removed them from your buy list. 2.7 Chrysler is a real classic. That was really an issue caused by coolant seeping into the motor. 4.7 Dodge, same kind of thing. 2.5 Nissan Altima engine, or the 2.5 engine. How about Xterras and Pathfinders with the transmission problems that would come up on those vehicles? All that was caused by the cooling transmission cooler in the radiator failing and allowing coolant to seep into your transmission, and that was causing sludge and grime buildup, and also breaking down the tranny fluid and eating away at the inside of the transmission. None of those problems that come from the eating away or the coolant in your oil are manifesting themselves and coming out and saying that you're having problems with your oil. You're just having other issues that are caused by this kind of thing coming up, where you're getting misfire codes and you're having timing issues. Your computer systems are making lots of adjustments on these cars themselves, trying to solve the problem, and they adjust themselves into a point where they can't adjust any longer. And the sludge is causing your engines to run at higher temperatures, and they're not used to doing that. And your electrical components don't hold up well under higher temperatures. And so the constant use of these vehicles in high temperature situations, not running properly, you're having lots of problems with your vehicles, and a bunch of it's caused by sludge buildup. And then we talk about friction. Friction's another big problem that you're dealing with on your vehicles, and friction's always been there. That's why you have motor oil in there in the first place in your engine, is to create slickness, the viscosity, to help the components move back and forth. But it's drag and heat that creates the friction, and heat being the optimal word there, where the heat build up. The heat, your engine can't work off the heat, and the heat is constantly there. That's breaking down other items under your hood. Those other items are the ones kicking on your check engine lights, and you're fixing those items, and you're not fixing the heat problem, the friction problem. Friction is bad for everything. I mean, that was the reason that bi-ply tires went the way of the dinosaur, and that was because they couldn't hold up to the heat and the wear and tear, and they didn't hold up well, and radial tires came out. And what's the thing about a radial tire? When you're spinning that tire at highway speed, you're rolling on a couple of the treads in the center of the tire. Cuts down on the friction, helps the tire last longer. And then let's talk about the coolant. Again, we were already talking about the coolant, but that coolant problem, it's a slow seepage of coolant into your engine or your transmission. I mean, your Dodge trucks, a lot of your Dodge problems are caused, a lot of it mainly by the coolant problem, creating the sludge, or the coolant itself is eating away at the metals inside of your engine. and that's helping cause additional friction, which is helping cause additional heat. And that causes a cycle of destruction where your engine, the coolant is introduced in there, it's eating away at it, you're having other issues where your computer systems are making adjustments trying to fight all this off, and the customers aren't taking very good care of the cars. Your electronic components start to break down, and now you're making tons of repairs, and a lot of it comes from the coolant or the friction. Here's a cool picture that I use to help transition into how we solve these problems. And this, of course, is the space shuttle breaking the sound butter. But can you imagine the heat and the friction of the components of those that you see in this picture? And that is the necessity is the mother of invention, helped bring this product that we're going to talk about that Ted brought to us into the world, because they needed help with getting release of the tanks from the space shuttle after all of that friction and all of the high pressure that was on the components to release. And that's where they developed liquid nanomolecular technology that could stand up to high heat and high pressure and allow components to move under those high heat and high pressures and release those tanks from the space shuttle. They used it in racing engines. The military uses it in all kinds of applications, and that's what this product has basically been developed for. So how can we use it in the auto industry? You know, most lubricant products, like we were talking about earlier, Slick 50, Royal Purple, Lucas, Miracle Mystery Oil, Mobile One, all these items, they have additives that they add to their lubricant products to help the viscosity, make the lubricant slicker. The liquid nanotechnology that I'm talking about is a product that's introduced into the oil, uses the oil as a carrier to move it through the engine, and the liquid molecules, the nanomolecules, find all the hot metal and adhere to it. And what's nano mean? Let's just discuss the difference here. Let's say the Earth is the size of a regular molecule, a standard size molecule. A nanomolecule, specifically in the technology we're talking about, would be a tennis ball compared to the planet Earth. That's how small these molecules are, and they are a liquid molecule technology. And you think, liquid, how's that going to help? How's that going to hold up? Well, all your hydraulic systems, even your brakes, use liquid for a reason, because it does not compress. And so you take this liquid nanotechnology, you introduce it into your oil, it's moved all through your engine, through your circulatory system. It looks for the hot metal, which is going to be on every surface and every scar and every void that there is in these engines and transmissions, and this liquid nanotechnology is going to adhere to that metal. It's also polarizing, so that liquid nano molecule is polarizing the internal parts of your engine, and that draws the oil or the lubricant to the nanomolecules. So now there's always lubricant everywhere in the engine that's been heated, that has heated metal. And so your pistons and your rings and all the valves and all the moving parts in that engine are now hardly touching each other, if not at all. And there is scientific proof that there's actually an amount of space between all the metals that is filled by this liquid nanotechnology and your lubricant. So it almost creates a frictionless situation inside of your engine. So how did we get to this conversation that we're having? You know, I told you about Ted earlier. Ted was talking about liquid nanotechnology and NASA and the military and racing teams using his product that he was showing us. All impressive sounding stuff, and we did our testing on it. Obviously, it impressed us and it worked. But for a long time, there was no Ted. I couldn't figure out where to find the product. I basically forgot about it until I wrote an article about a service department and who was paying for the repairs that your customers were having done on your vehicles, which, of course, we know is mainly you in some form or fashion. Ted talked about all these products, and then someone called me from Jillcat Proline, and they start telling me the same things, and I'm listening to them going, I've heard this before. and they're telling me they have their own line of products that has the nanotechnology, but on top of that, they have blended it with a detergent product that dissolves the sludge. So now we have Ted's liquid nanotechnology and a sludge fighter that's actually a sludge dissolver or killer or whatever you want to use. And so I was very much intrigued, got some of the product from it, and said, I'm going to do a little more specific testing. And so there's a lot of things I could tell you about on the testing. We won't waste a lot of time now, but one specific item was a 5.9 Dodge truck Ram. We had already in the past for a customer's vehicle cleaned out the oil pan, changed out the oil pump, but he kept having no oil pressure. Be driving it, it would show oil pressure, then all of a sudden it would drop to no oil pressure. On occasion, the engine would shut off because of the safe modes in the computer system. He loved the truck. He wanted to keep it, but he didn't want to pay for another motor, or really couldn't afford to. And we had just gotten this product and thought of him and thought we would test it on him. So he agreed. We changed his oil. We put in 2 bottles of the Gilcat engine conditioner, the Gilcat ProLine engine conditioner. We drove the vehicle, and we put the product in while the engine was running and warm. We drove the vehicle about 50 miles on the highway, and we did not have any drop of the oil pressure in that 50 miles. We drove the vehicle around town a little bit, still no drop in the oil pressure, and we noticed that the temperature gauge was staying on the left side of the midline where it had been always on the right side of the midline. So we felt comfortable that it was doing what we were told and what we thought that it would do. We gave the customer back the vehicle, asked him to bring it back within 2 weeks, and we were going to rechange the oil, put a little more product in there if he was satisfied. It's been 6 weeks now. We can't get him to bring the vehicle back to us. He loves it. He's got more power, he thinks. It has better gas mileage, he's pretty sure. He has not seen the oil pressure drop this whole time, so he is ecstatic. We've done another engine that had a low-end knock. We did the same thing, changed the oil, put in the Gilcat ProLine engine treatment, drove it the same distance, 50, 60 miles. The knock was quieted down. We couldn't really hear it. We ran the vehicle through our standard reconditioning program, still didn't hear it, put the vehicle out on the lot for sale and sold it. Still haven't heard anything from a customer about a knock in the engine. So that, along with some delay in gauge on a transmission that went away, a hard shift problem on a Chevy Impala that we improved, a tapping on a 2.7, a 300 Chrysler 2.7 that we were having trouble selling because the engine just tapped every time you started it cold. And we put it in there, drove it to 50 miles. The tapping was quiet, of course, after driving it. But the next several days, we could never hear the tapping again, and the vehicle got sold. Customers never said a word. It's great. Lots of power steering units that we've had from Honda, Chevy Traverse, GMC Acadia that were growling or hard to steer the steering. We thought we were going to be replacing components. An ounce of the Gilcat automatic transmission conditioner in the power steering units actually took care of those power steering units and stopped us from having to buy them. And then they have a fuel conditioner that works very well as well, at least to our experience so far, where we have the vehicles that you come to a stop and the engine would sputter and you couldn't get it to go and they would die. And we introduced this into a full tank of fuel, drove it quite a bit, about 1/8 of a tank or so fuel through there, and we did not experience the dying problem. The vehicle's been introduced into the inventory and is out there for sale, and no one's had any issue with it this far. So a lot of different tests. I can tell you a lot more about them if you want to contact me personally, and there's lots of ways to get in touch with me. So Gilcat ProLine is a line of products that will remove almost completely friction inside of all your lubricated components on your vehicles. The sludge detergent product will break down the sludge inside of these engines, and you know, these ports and these channels, they stop up halfway. You might have one cylinder that has trouble getting oil, and it's always constantly a lot hotter than the rest of them, and you can't figure out why you're having other issues and misfires and check engine codes coming up on the vehicle, where it could just be a stopped up port where the oil can't travel. What you see in these pictures are the bearing test on the left, where just to show you it's an electric motor that has a bearing race on there, and you use a bearing on the torsion bar and you stop the engine with pressure from the torsion bar. And with all the normal products, you can stop that under 40 pounds of pressure, but you put the GeoCat product on there and you cannot stop the engine with the pressure from the torsion bar, even almost bending the torsion bar. On the right, you see an older 318 Chrysler engine. It's carbureted. How many of y'all seen a carburetor? But this was an old engine that got pulled out of the mud, basically, at a salvage yard. Some extra work got done to it. It got assembled and rebuilt and so that it could be used on this engine run setup. And they'll bring it out to the shows. We take it there. We put oil in it. We start it up. We let it get up to operating temperature. You drain the oil out of it. Of course, the GeoCat product is in there. And let it set and run for hours with no motor oil in the engine. And it stays quiet and will run for hours and hours. So you can imagine what that would do in your inventory, your portfolio, if your collateral's out there, and you don't have to worry near as much about lubricating all the parts, because your customers are certainly not worried about lubricating all the components. So you can get the GeoCat ProLine engine conditioner product, the transmission product, the differential product. They have a product for power steering units. They have a product for the cooling system. They have products for your fuel system. You have those vehicles with EGRs that give you fits. You can run this through the system and clean those out. Even clean out your catalytic converters by getting rid of the unburnt raw gas by cleaning up the system. Go to geocatproline.com. You can go to that website. You can read more about the product, how it was developed. You can read about the different products that we offer. We have kits coming out that you can buy kits for your different vehicles. I'm not trying to sell anybody on using this product to hide problems, get cars snuck through the auction. I'm telling you it will fix, or at least seem to fix, a lot of major problems with a lot of vehicles. But imagine what it could do just introducing it into your inventory and protecting you from your customers that will not do maintenance on your vehicles. How much better will your vehicles perform? How much can you save either on your reinsurance program, in your shop, or on a third-party service contract program if you could cut down friction, reduce heat, and not have to worry if your customers are not changing the oil? Check it out. My name's Daughtry. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can read my articles and Buy Here, Pay Here report. And you can go to my website, dealers411.net, to find ways to get a hold of me.